Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all. A very interesting case came down from your Supreme Court there recently. Well, not even 24 hours ago.
Correct. And we have been talking with our producer, Doubting Thomas. He gave us a lot of really good resources to cover with y'all. So we're going to go over the things that he sent us. It's going to be a couple articles. Well, it's going to be an article. It's going to be part of Chief Justice Roberts' decision in the assent. And we'll actually look at the 14th Amendment for the last couple of minutes to discuss sovereignty and what that means and why it seems so strange from the Irish perspective that this is even a case. Right? So we're going to start with the Supreme Court strikes down Trump order ending birthright citizenship. This is by Amy Howe on SCOTUS blog. That is a picture of the Supreme Court there, little archival footage, amazing Roman structure. Here we go. So this is updated on June 30th at 1:55 p.m. The Supreme Court on Tuesday struck down President Donald Trump's executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship, the guarantee of citizenship to virtually everyone born in the United States. In a decision by Chief Justice John Roberts in Trump v. Barbara, the justices agreed with the challengers as well as all of the lower courts around the country that have considered the issue that Trump's order cannot be reconciled with the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which confers citizenship on anyone born ... in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So that's a pretty important thing. It already came up, so we'll look at the 14th Amendment later, but the subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a bit of a sticking point. Can you see where that's
Yeah.
happening there, Patrick? Can you understand why that's
Yes,
the
yes.
case?
Yeah, we went over with Thomas, our producer, and I can understand it's a bit of a sticking point over there. I
Right.
remember we had the same debate years ago in Ireland, and since 2005, we changed we had a referendum, we changed our constitution. So if we're born in Ireland, now you're not guaranteed Irish citizenship. I didn't realize how old this particular amendment was. What it was 160 years old. We figured it out.
Well, it came out
Maybe
after the
jiggling
Civil
us.
War. So the 13th Amendment
Yes.
came out, which was functionally freeing the slaves. And then the 14th Amendment
Mm.
was what they used to establish their citizenship as they were born in the United States, but they did not freely show up here of their own accord or their parents or grandparents, whomever came over on the ships to be put into an indentured servitude slavery situation. The antebellum South
Yeah.
was a horrific thing. I don't agree with it, but they're freeing. They needed an amendment that would allow them to legally under the Constitution have citizenship because they were citizens. They were born here, um, but again, they were not brought here of their own volition, right? But we have people who are now coming into the country who do it of their own volition, and they have babies here. So it's birth tourism is
So
what it is, right?
it's birth tourism, and what are the figures around that? Does anyone know?
It is absolutely insane. It is an
No, but
insane number.
it does.
I don't
Yes.
have specific numbers because they're illegal. They haven't come through a
Okay.
port of entry. They haven't done the appropriate things to either be naturalized or they are already a citizen or a legal resident per the Wong Kim Ark decision in the late 1890s from the Supreme
Yeah.
Court, which said legal residents can have children who are citizens. But when you come illegally, you are not observing any one of those three instances, right? You are not a citizen, you are not a legal resident, nor are you a naturalized citizen, right? So it would seem to me, and the Irish government would agree with me, that then they're not necessarily citizens, right? So the problem comes with subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Okay, so
Mm.
subject to the jurisdiction thereof means you're subject to the sovereignty of the nation from which you originate, where you have a passport from, right? So you have an Irish passport, you are subject to the jurisdiction of the Irish government, the Republic of Ireland, right?
Yes.
But if a citizen of, say, Honduras, which a Barbara, and you'll see who Barbara is here in a moment, it's the case that actually is at stake here, right? That the sovereignty of that individual was not to the United States, the sovereignty was to the Honduran government, right? So if she's subject to the sovereignty of the Honduran government, she's a Honduran citizen, which means that her children that she gives birth to should be subject to the sovereignty of the Honduran government, not the United States, which means she should not have citizenship in the United States, except Chief Justice Roberts disagrees with me very
And how
fundamentally.
and how did it work in the last 160 plus years?
The problem with modernity is the ability to move around very, very quickly. You can get on a plane anywhere and get to the United States within a day, right? You have recent
Yes.
experience. It takes you 11 hours to get to the west coast of the United States from
Yes.
Ireland, right?
Yes.
From either Dublin or Cork or wherever, right?
Yes.
But your whole time of travel is less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Back when this law came into effect, you could not easily get to San Francisco from Dublin in 11 or 12 hours.
I understand that, but
Right.
what I'm trying to say is, I know over the last 100+ year, a lot of us Irish, I know a few relations of mine have dual citizenship. They
Right.
were born in the United States, but they also come from Irish parents and so on.
Right. There was a
They have
huge
dual
Irish
citizenship.
diaspora for sure. You guys
Yes.
ended up all over the Western.
So
countries.
yes, those kids were born in the United States, even though their parents technically were illegal, is the best word I could describe it.
I
Now
agree.
they're dual citizens. Now they've grown up. They're dual citizens. They hold both passports, the whole 9 yards. What I'm trying to say is, why is it such a major issue now that this system has worked perfectly well in the last 160 years?
It hasn't worked perfectly well. Dual citizenship is a problem. When you achieve your majority, you should, and in many cases you must, declare for one country or another. To achieve a position in the Department of Defense or a lot of governmental agencies, you must get rid of your other citizenship, except if it is Israel.
But didn't you have a system back there a couple of years back, remember, in the US military, where non-citizens, if they served a certain amount of time in your armed forces, would be fast-tracked for citizenship within
Yes.
the United States?
Right, because you are serving our country.
Yes.
Right? You are sacrificing something, right? There's a sacrifice there. You're saying, I will
Yes.
serve in your military and it will allow me to have better opportunities, but I will defend the country. And upon completion of service, when I end term of service, when I ETS, I can then apply for, or if I've already served X amount of time, based on times that I have reinstated my contract to get more time, I can then apply for citizenship, right?
Yeah.
That is sacrifice. That isn't,
Yes.
I showed up as a tourist and had a baby. Now, here's the other issue.
Yes.
If
By
that
the
is
way,
in
the
fact
reason
the
I
case,
point,
go ahead.
by the way, the reason I pointed this out is the reason we got rid of this in our constitution is we had a lot of, as you're describing, birth tourism, especially from Nigeria, and that's no harm pointing that out. It's on the news headlines. We all know it.
Good old Helen Ogbu. Got it.
Yes, no, an awful lot of Nigerians mothers were suddenly arriving up in Ireland. They were flying from Nigeria into Europe, from Europe into Ireland, and then they wait around for a couple of months, give birth, and Bob's your uncle. There's an Irish citizen. So that was
there you go.
happening en masse, by the way. Not just Nigeria, but the vast majority of them were Nigerian, but a lot of them were African descent. The government at the time said, yes, this is absolutely ridiculous. We had a referendum, and just cutting all this short, by the way, people can look it up themselves.
It makes sense.
And we had a referendum, and 50+% of people voted that we have to get rid of this. Now, what is the mechanism of we getting rid of this in your own country?
The mechanism would be for us to go back to the senators who were speaking on the floor at the time, who said specifically this was to ensure that those who were indentured and now free, were no longer slaves, could have citizenship. They discussed this specifically, and they also said that people who are not from here and not subject to the sovereignty of the United States could not generate a citizen merely by having birth on geographically what is the United States. That was actually said on the Senate floor when discussing the bill and how it passed, right? It's a way you can check if the language of a bill is unclear. You can go one step further back and the legislature will say, well, here's what they said on the Senate floor that was in agreement with what the bill actually says and how it was put forward and why it was put forward. The other issue we have then is that we have foreign nationals then who are stealing our citizens. So if a birthright tourist comes in and has a child, then what we're saying is it is okay for foreign nationals to steal our citizens. That's a problem too.
Wait a second. There's no airline in the world, legitimate airline in the world, that's going to let a woman over 6 months pregnant get on their plane.
Well, they managed to get here somehow. Well,
that's what I'm saying. I've seen a lot of hyper videos around it. Let's cut out those guys for a moment. Let's say this person arrives in Ireland, arrives in the US illegally, gets pregnant, has a child.
Right.
That's realistically what is happening. Not the lady 5 minutes from being pregnant suddenly hops on a plane and flies to the United
Well, I
States.
mean,
That's not going to ever happen.
5 minutes from giving birth.
Yes, exactly. That's not going to happen. Let's cut out the Fox News guys. You know what I mean? Who obviously don't know how pregnancy works in some cases.
It
Now,
would seem to be the case.
what
yes.
is the mechanism of getting rid of the 14th Amendment? That's what it comes down to. What's the quickest and easiest way?
So what would have to happen is the Senate and the House of Representatives would have to generate a bill that more specifically defines what citizenship is and how it relates. So they would have to come up with a law that would enforce what the 14th Amendment's actual design was. That's what would have to happen. And in fact, a Democrat senator under Obama came up with, was it Harry Reid? I think it was the Harry Reid bill. It got shot down. But the Republicans have now revived that bill and they're pushing it through because it specifically designates the 14th Amendment as it is understood that those under the sovereignty of the United States, and in fact, when they have children, those children be citizens, right?
So obviously this bill will go to the floor and be voted on, and that would change your constitution then?
It wouldn't change the Constitution. It would redefine the language of the Constitution. So I guess that would be a, in quotes, change. But the problem is they already had discussions in the 1860s on this on the Senate floor, where they said specifically this is not for non-citizens who have citizens.
And obviously the world has changed since, as you pointed out there.
Right, with modernity.
And be anywhere in the world in less than a day.
Right, and we were watching Munn, I believe it was, talk about how a fellow went from an African country to Europe, went to Belfast, and is now south of Belfast in Dublin.
He did actually a nice. He did a very interesting world tour. He went from Afghanistan to Iran, to Turkey,
right,
to Greece,
to France.
And somehow he got from Greece to France,
to Belfast.
Then he got to the UK. Then he got to Belfast, and then he got to Dublin.
Bro,
so he went on a bit of a world tour.
I would love to go on a world tour.
By the way,
passport,
with no passport at all whatsoever.
Just boom, there he is. Right.
Yes.
So
obviously, can I ask a question? Could I get into the United States with no passport?
Absolutely not.
All right.
Okay. Between 2021 and 2024, if you had gotten to somewhere south of the Darien Gap in South America, gotten north of the Darien Gap, and gone up to the border and just walked on into the United States from the southern border, absolutely, 100%, you could have done that. Now
that would save me a lot of money that time where you're living.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What I'm saying is there isn't. We've gone slightly off track at the moment.
We have. All right.
What we're trying to point out is how easy it is to get from A to B to C.
In modernity, absolutely.
And I understand that back when this law initially came in the 1860s, when they debated this amendment, it wasn't such an issue. And I understand why it is an issue in the United States at the moment. Because obviously when people are waiting for their cases to be held, say, in the likes of immigration court and so on, obviously that takes a long process. And, you know,
and
it only takes 9 months. It only takes 9 months to have a baby.
Right. Well, it depends on, I guess, how good you are at it.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it's a very sticky wicket for you over there, as they would say in the UK. As I say, I don't see changing it anytime soon by the looks of it, especially with this ruling.
Well, the bigger problem is the filibuster in the Senate that's going to force the vote to have to be a 60-40 vote to pass, right?
60-40. Okay.
Right. There's some There's some functions with the filibuster. So right now, I believe it's 53-47 in the Senate, for them to try and get something through. But if they can't get to 60, which means they need bipartisan assistance from 7 Democrats, who are probably not going to play. Right.
There's no Democrat in the world who wants to get reelected, by the way, is going to help pass that particular bill.
Right, which means they need to do something with the filibuster, which they don't want to do because whoever's not in power really feels they need the filibuster to slow the processes down.
Yes, obviously. So, look, it's benefited both sides over your time in your history. So
for sure. All right.
No, let's get back on track, as they would say, back to this main meat of the case.
Writing for the majority, Roberts emphasized that the children born of parents unlawfully or temporarily present in the United States satisfies both elements of the citizenship clause. I don't see it, but maybe he does. Under the Constitution, he concluded they are citizens at birth. Now, they're subject to the jurisdiction for criminal behavior, but they're not subject to the sovereignty of the United States, which is slightly different. In a dissenting opinion, Justice Samuel Alito called the ruling both one of the most important decisions in the history of the court and a serious mistake. Careful analysis of the text of the 14th Amendment and the processes led to its adoption, Alito argued, show that it does not degrade the concept of United States citizenship in this way. Instead, he contended, the 14th Amendment confers citizenship on only those children who, at birth, owe allegiance solely to this country, which they do not, which is what I was talking about before. So if they have in fact created a U.S. citizen, the way that people are created, then what you're saying is that foreign nationals are allowed to steal our citizens to other countries, right? If that's what they're doing is birth tourism.
Obviously not stealing, they end up being dual citizens, which has happened.
But they're not times. Right. But at the time, if you say that individual is a citizen of the United States, then foreign nationals are stealing our citizens. Necessarily, they must be doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Right? Let's clarify. They're not stealing citizens; they're dual citizens. Let's clarify a tiny bit. Right, I understand.
But then
I understand the language around this at the moment, but let's clarify the tiny bit.
So if
you have a dual citizenship, you're a citizen of both countries. But you're a citizen of.
Right, but then to move that American citizen, they should require something should happen. Well, you can take the American citizen out of the United States if you renounce their citizenship. Otherwise, even dual citizen or not, if you say they're an American citizen, then they must stay. And if you are subject to the sovereignty of a foreign nation and you want them to go back to that nation, then they need to renounce the American citizenship. Right? That's what's going to have to take place, because either they are stealing the citizens away from our country or they are not. Right, dual citizenship or not.
Going to be, that's going to be a very sticky wicket to
but that's
unwind.
Right, but that's what this ruling has created. What you're saying is those are American citizens, but then you're allowing people to take American citizens out of the geographical space of the United States. You're saying, oh no, it's okay, you can have them here.
What happens if and take them away? Okay. Let's talk about what happens when an American man meets a foreign lady. They married, they have a kid. Kid has dual citizenship, and they go on holidays. You could say the same thing. They're stealing them outside the border as well.
Right, but then you file when you take a vacation, because if you apply for a visa somewhere, you have to say we're American citizens and that's the way that it is. Right?
Yes.
That's okay, because at birth the child was born of a citizen subject to the sovereignty of the United States. But an individual who isn't subject to the sovereignty and has a child, then you would be then stealing that American citizen out of the geographical borders of the United States. That's what you would be doing fundamentally.
So can they go on holidays?
No, why not? They just file for a visa with whatever country they're
not
going
stealing
to.
If they just say if they pop over the
because
border,
they're going through the system
or so on.
Right, but they're going through the system appropriately to say that we as American citizens, subject to the sovereignty, are going somewhere else. I as a citizen.
Yes, I understand. I understand that this is a pretty heated topic at the moment.
Right, but understand that the foreign nationals who have had the child, if they go to take the citizen out of the country, then they are stealing the citizen from the country. If they say dual citizenship, great. That's awesome. Are you American citizens? No. Let me see your passport and your visa.
That's what a lot of them do apply for. In fairness, they do go for dual citizenship. For the most part, they do.
Right, and that's great, except they don't have it at the time that the child was born, which means that they were doing something illegal by having entered the country on false pretenses.
So what do you think the state's solution? What do you think the state's solution should be?
I don't have a good fix, because this thing just came down. All I can think is, don't steal my citizens if you say they're citizens. And if they're citizens,
you should separate the child from the parents?
Yes, because they came in illegally, 100%. 100%. Because you did it on a false pretense. You've committed a crime against the United States.
I remember somebody tried this, and Trump tried that in his first term, where he was separating parents and children, and it became an absolute
it was a problem. But it was a problem that the Obama administration had already been doing these things. The Obama administration had already been separating.
I know Trump tried to ramp it up, and he realized a couple of months into it, this is a complete and utter bad idea, because he's just, you had kids in cages, you had the whole bad optics.
Bad optics, and the kids in cages thing was way overblown. Because the ICE requirement for incarceration or for detainment is much higher than that of the states of the United States, which is why they had the issue in New Jersey. New Jersey was going to lose the ability, the place where there was a ton of the protesting, they were going to lose their ability to detain foreign nationals because they weren't up to the appropriate standards for an ICE facility, right? But either way, what happens is when you come here on a false pretense, you can then be incarcerated. So let's say you're driving your car down the road and you're driving drunk with a child in the car, right? The police
Yep.
must separate you from the child because you have committed an illegal act, right? It is unsafe for you to operate the vehicle with a child in the car because you're drunk, right? You're committing a crime. So what you're saying is it's okay to commit certain crimes, but not other crimes, and you get to bear good fruit from bad decisions. You get to abuse the
I'm
system.
not saying that. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate at the moment.
I
What I'm trying
understand.
to say is,
Oh, that's why I
yeah.
responded.
What also, before anyone destroys in the comments, Trump tried this before and he failed miserably. Trump will not try this again, and I can guarantee you this, no matter what.
Right,
this
except that
says.
if the
Because-
House of Representatives and the Senate,
because
hold on a second, if the
the
House
reason-
of
the reason
Representatives,
is-
hold on,
the reason is
hold on, no,
the reason
hold
is
on.
because the midterms are
Okay.
coming up.
I get the midterms are coming up. However, the problem is that they're bearing good fruit from bad decisions. They are defrauding the United States. They have lied, right? That's also not acceptable. So if they commit the crime, then they should, in fact, what? Do the time. And if you have children that you've made bad decisions about by defrauding the United States, if the separation occurs, it's because the parents who have agency have made illegal decisions against the United States.
By the way,
Not
I'm not
acceptable.
arguing. By the way, I'm not disagreeing with you. You're perfectly right in what you're saying, but I can guarantee you, nothing is going to be done before the midterms about this.
Right. But if
There'll be a
the
lot of
Senate,
rhetoric around it.
of course,
At the moment, there'll be a lot of angry words said, and there'll be lots of shaking of the hands.
Hold on, are we going to
But I
clutch
can
our pearls?
guarantee you,
We're going to clutch our pearls,
Yes.
aren't we? Damn it.
yes,
All right.
because Trump is not going to endanger the midterms. He
Also-
already has a lot of things against him in the midterms. If he goes and does what he did in the first term, that absolutely looked absolutely bad around the world. Kids in
they'll
cages.
destroy them. Yeah.
Even
Even
if
all
it-
this stuff
yeah.
come up again. So,
The whole the optics would absolutely cripple the Republicans in the midterms.
well, the Democrats aren't looking too good either. So, but the other problem with that is the DSA has roughly infiltrated them, and it's not going good for the Democrats as well. They're getting the wrong kinds of people elected, even from their
To
perspective.
be perfectly honest, just looking at the polls at the moment over there, is more and more people looking at independents outside the mainstream parties.
Are
That
they
kind
doing
of
the
way.
Irish thing where they just put the green in because screw everybody?
Because to be honest, it's a curse on both their houses. I think a lot of normal American citizens are looking at their economy at the moment. They're looking at nearly $5 a gallon, and they're saying, "Do you know what? Both
Yeah.
sides are equally as bad as each
Well,
other."
I only paid $5.79 a gallon today. I felt pretty lucky because I was paying $6.59 the other day. So
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous.
well, and you saw
Absolutely
the fuel
ridiculous.
prices here. It's insane, but it's
yeah.
still not as much as you guys pay per liter over there if you convert it to gallons. You guys are
Yes,
paying $11 or
actually,
$12
yes, we
a
are a
gallon.
bit more. Yeah, we are actually more expensive over here. But you have to remember, our economy. A lot of people going to work. A lot of us over here use public transport, for the most part, in major towns and cities. Not so much in rural areas.
Oh, tell
But-
everybody how easy it would be to use public transportation in the United States to get anywhere reasonably.
Just don't.
Just
Just
don't.
don't.
Oh, why
Just
is it?
don't. There is little or no public transport
Yes,
proper system over there.
not good.
It's an absolute. Well, it's there in theory.
Well,
somewhat.
Oh yeah, real quick before we get back,
It's
if the
theory.
House of Representatives and the Senate redefine or define more appropriately what citizenship is, that would change this immediately.
Mm.
So we're going to read this last paragraph. We're going to go over some of the Chief
Ooh,
Justice Roberts thing. Trump issued the executive order at the center of the case on 20 January 2025, shortly after he was sworn into office for a second term, provided that babies who were born in the United States to parents who were not in the country, who were in this country either illegally or temporarily, are not automatically entitled to citizenship, much like they do in Ireland, right? So that's how that works. And then we will go to this one. All right. So Supreme Court of the United States, Trump, President of the United States, and all the government agencies versus Barbara. Certiorari before the judgment of the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. So certiorari is when you attempt to get a case to the United States Supreme Court, you have to do a writ of certiorari for them to look at the case, right? So we're going to start this. The question presented is whether the Constitution guarantees citizenship to children born in the United States of parents who are unlawfully or temporarily presently in the country. Under the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside on January 20, 2025, the President issued Executive Order number 14160. Order titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. The order provides that children born in the United States of parents who are unlawfully or temporarily present here are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, if we look at the 14th Amendment, all persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, right? That is a political sovereignty issue, if you're following me.
Yes.
Right. So for political sovereignty, it is who are the parents' sovereign, who's the parent's sovereign nation, right? So under the 14th Amendment or the Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, which uses the same language, 90 Federal Reg 8449, several parents filed suits, some in the name of their children, arguing that the executive order violates the 14th Amendment and the INA. So if your child is a citizen and you are not a citizen, that presents a problem. What do we do with the parents for those who have entered illegally? They're in violation of 8 USC. They're not supposed to be here.
Because obviously, it's a very, very, because you can't really separate the child and the parents.
But you could if they were to renounce the American citizenship so they don't steal our American citizens to foreign nations.
Yes, but obviously you're not going to grab a newborn out of a mother's arms. That's not going to happen.
Right, it's not. So they're going to have to...
Let's talk in the real world. That's not going to happen.
Right, but that's the problem with this ruling. This ruling has created a situation where the citizen will be stolen by foreign nationals. So what do you do then? They acted illegally. They're in violation of 8 USC.
So what when you say the word stolen is what? Let's clarify that a tiny bit.
Okay, let's clarify.
So do you mean that they would take the child outside the United States, say back to their home country?
Yes, they're kidnapping the American citizen. 100%.
No,
if you say they're an American citizen but they're subject to a foreign nationality, then they need to either renounce the citizenship of the child to freely move with the child, or they need to leave the citizen here to be cared for by the United States. Right? It can't be. It can't be either way.
You mean leave the child in the tender mercies of the foster care system?
The individual who violated 8 USC is in violation of federal law. They have broken the law.
I understand that.
Then they need to be deported. But then they need to renounce the citizenship of the child so they can take the child with them. Easy. I don't want to separate the child. But if you say that is an American citizen and you are making a decision because you have agency and you're the parent of the child, that's fine. Then renounce the citizenship.
But it has come up recently that entire families have been deported out of the United States. You know, parents, children, the whole 9 yards.
But that's the right way to do it, right? Because they're in violation of 8 USC. But the reason that could happen is because those children are not actually subject to the sovereignty of the United States because their parents are not, which is why this ruling makes things very, very strange, right? That's why there's a problem. If we said they are not citizens, then as a group collectively, you ship them back to where they are from because they're subject to the sovereignty of a different nation. But as soon as you say that individual is an American citizen and we're going to let foreign nationals take our citizens away, that's a problem. That's kidnapping, right? That's what that is.
And yes, but obviously there's, and as I keep going back to the reality of the real world, there's no president or even senator or anyone else silly enough or suicidal enough if they want to get reelected.
Right, but the plain reading of the decision by Justice Roberts specifically indicates we're allowing foreign nationals to steal our citizens, regardless of how the citizen became a citizen.
Yes, but the problem is, in the reality of the real world, there's no way the United States is going to go down the road of taking a child away from their parents. They're not going to go down that road again. They have already tried it once, and it was an absolute PR disaster. Now, as I say, very little is going to be done on this ruling before the midterms, and that's been honest.
So here's what's held specifically. Children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are citizens at birth under the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause. And that's fine. If that's what you hold, you can hold that, right? But they're not subject to the sovereignty. They're subject to the criminal jurisdiction, which is why they can be in violation of 8 USC. That's why. Because they're subject to the criminal law, because everyone who comes here, if you commit a crime, you're subject to criminal penalty. You're not subject to the sovereignty necessarily, except they're saying that, yes, they are subject to the sovereignty, which is, in my opinion, a complete misreading of how that works, right?
But obviously, no, agree or disagree, the ruling has been made at this stage, 5-3 decision. How do you think this will affect the whole ICE operation going forward?
They're going to stop birth tourism as quickly as they possibly can, and then they're going to
So
have to.
when you talk about birth tourism, are you talking about heavily pregnant women hopping on the plane and jumping over the border?
However it is they got here. It doesn't matter how they got here. If they got here illegally, they're subject to 8 USC. They are in violation.
Okay, but
They hold.
when you're talking about birth tourism, when I think tourism, I think a person coming over there on holidays.
Right, except the Chinese government and many governments have put together plans to make it so it's very, very difficult to figure out if someone is pregnant. Right, they have lots of ability and ways to hide the pregnancy, as it were. And then if they get here early enough in the pregnancy where it doesn't show, then they just overstay their visa.
Can I ask you a question? When's the last time you went through an international airport?
Oh, Jesus. Late 2000, near 2010.
Okay. I'll put it this way. Anyone who's listening to me right now who's traveled internationally would tell you that cannot happen, because when you go through an international airport, you know the big circular scanners that literally x-ray you?
Mhm.
Yes. Very hard to hide a pregnancy.
Right, but understanding that means there's good faith actors on both sides. Right? If
yes.
it is said
by the way, you go when you fly into the United States, you go through the same process, by the way, internationally, on both sides of the equation.
But they're still getting here somehow, and it's still happening, which means
according to a lot of the Fox News, yes, apparently
it's the Fox News people. So we don't have people who are violating 8 USC and having children like this to get birthright citizenship.
Yes. Well, realistically, if you wanted to say, if you're a heavily pregnant woman, the easiest way to get into the United States was not flying. Is say you live in Canada for a while. Not by the way, not condoning what I'm about to say. Live in Canada, get pregnant, hop over the border, wander around the United States for a few months, and then give birth. That's probably what is happening.
Right. It just means that neither the northern or southern border is as strong as it could be. The southern border is way better than it was, but the northern border is still a bit of an issue. We still have a ton of dope that comes in from that northern border. It's the largest unregulated border functionally in the world.
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, it does send a lot of cannabis over the border. Yeah, not so much to California because it's legalized there, but to the rest of the United States, yes,
for the most part.
That's yeah.
All right, so I think we've beaten this one front end as much as we possibly can.
As I keep saying to you, it's going to be a very little other than clutch and pearls, as you would say. It's going to happen about this before the midterms.
Well, this creates a legal fiction. It creates a legal fiction that causes issues, right? Because either an individual is an American citizen or they're not. And if you say yes, foreign nationals can take them.
I can guarantee you right now, this particular decision is going to trigger so many court cases on both sides of the aisle in the next couple of years. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous.
I'm not going to bet you a bob or any push-ups for that. Hell no.
Yes, because I already know where this is going, because we had the same issues many moons ago in our own country.
Right. Well, and hopefully the craziness that this thing generates, the Supreme Court's going to be like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best. But again,
no, but
if the
news cycle
fixes it,
you know the news cycle.
Oh, it's going to be silly.
You know the news cycle, and you know the present administration. Something shiny will happen next week and be off the headlines.
Right, but this is going to continue to be an issue, especially in places.
Well, this particular ruling will bite you in the ass.
Oh, for sure. And again, it has to do with unclear terms based on understanding on the Senate floor when the bill was preferred. The senators on the floor at the time said this is not for birthright citizenship. This is specifically for slaves to be given the franchise because they deserve citizenship.
But obviously the world has moved on in the last 160 years. And as you say, very easy to travel cross borders these days. Very, very easy.
Well, difficult to do appropriate international travel, but if you have bad faith actors, it'll happen, right? It comes with being a more low trust society. So, all right, anything more for the good of the people, Patrick?
No, as I said, thank God we got rid of this 50 odd years ago in our own country.
So the answer was yes, not no. Got it. Anyway.
Yes. And I also have a bit of the end, you know that. There we go.
Of course. All right, for Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, help us beat the algorithm. We're the A&P Gents, and we are out.